welcome to another episode of Perspective Checks, where I sit down with friends and folks from the TTRPG community to talk about all the things we love about this nerdy hobby we all share, so much so that many of us have designed ways to do it all by ourselves. Today, I am joined by the host of the Fallout 2D20 podcast, A Wasteland Story, and the incredible Solo Roleplayers podcast, PJ. PJ, thank you so much for coming on.
G'day. Thank you very much for having me. It's my absolute honor and privilege to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy we managed to schedule this despite significant time zone differences and just the holiday season as we're recording this.
You know, you talked about throwing me curveballs, and I'm going to try. I know this is it's unusual for me to be a guest. Like usually I'm the one hosting. I'm going to try and not go into host mode, but I do want to throw you a curveball first. We have actually spoken before. Did you know that? Yeah. I released, like 2 years ago now, or 18 months ago, I guess, I had just released my very first episode of A Wasteland Story. I did not know if it was going to be a show yet. It was just an experiment. I was on a train to Austria, and I was wanting to play, what was it called? Notorious, I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I was looking up on the internet if anyone had any podcast episodes about Notorious. And you came up. And I sent you a message, I think maybe even in the Podbean app or something.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think so. Like something really bizarre like that. Or maybe it was on Reddit. I'm not sure. But we had a very brief exchange 18 months ago. And I was so thrilled to find someone that was talking about solo RPGs on a podcast.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
And I will say, I loved Notorious and Outsiders, that trilogy mode. He recently did another Kickstarter for Notorious and Outsiders, turning it into like a more board game. And I was like, yeah, instant back. I already own the books and I've already played it, but I'm going to play it again. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But that's too funny. Cause I do know that you are on Reddit. I think I've seen posts of yours or something like that. So I was like, nice.
I should have gone through and tried to find the message somewhere, but I'm not that organized, you know.
That is a curveball, but we are a pretty small community in the solo world. And I'm glad that you kept A Wasteland Story going because I love that show.
Thank you.
And I have a comment about it. We'll talk about it, obviously, as we do this. But before we dive into all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, I do tend to ask all of my guests the same 3 questions at the top of the episode, just as a getting to know you, kind of setting the stage kind of thing. So the first one is, how long have you been playing TTRPGs or been around the hobby?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit of a unusual fish in this one. As everyone knows that expression I just made up. But I'm a bit of a baby, really. Like, I was aware of their existence. I was mostly into video games most of my growing up. I did play before moving to Germany, I guess in early 2019. I played like 5 or 6 sessions of D&D with some mates, which I didn't really get it. I thought it was sort of all right. And I was sort of annoyed, actually. I think that was the beginnings of my love for solo without knowing it, because I just wanted to keep going with the story, and everyone else was cracking jokes and, you know, like doing stuff that I didn't think was cool. They thought it was cool, you know.
Right.
And so I did like 5 sessions of that, and it was pretty fun, you know. And then it all broke apart. I said, "Hey, I'm moving to Germany," and someone else said, "Hey, I'm moving, you know, up north." And so that was it. And that was the entirety of my experience and exposure to RPGs. And then I didn't even think about it again until like sometime toward the end of COVID stuff over here. I think maybe 21, 22. And I just became aware, it popped up somewhere on the internet that there was this Fallout 2D20 RPG. And at that point I thought, I know what an RPG is now, you know, and immediately I could just picture playing in this sandbox world in Fallout, and then was immediately severely depressed about it because I thought, I'm never going to get people together to actually do this, you know, especially in Germany, in German.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get people to do it in English, A, people who are into Fallout, B, people who are into TTRPGs, C, and then organizing it around bloody lockdown and, you know, all this sort of stuff as well. And so I was simultaneously very excited and very upset about the fact that this was the best thing I'd ever seen, and I'm never going to be able to do anything with it. And I went and ordered the book anyway, because I thought, well, at least I can have it and I can read it and I can just enjoy it like a book and imagine things, you know. And it was around that time I discovered Discord, and sort of it popped up that there was something called play by post, which I'd never heard of, never thought of, but of course that made perfect sense. And I started getting excited again, and I thought, okay, there's actually some groups playing Fallout. This is cool. Now I have a reason to make a character, and so I did that, and I made this character I called Soskaid, and then started playing in this group, and we did exactly the equivalent of about 1/5 of a session. And it was just doing like the introductory part of where your character was. And I remember Soskaid was, down in the sewers or something, abandoned train lines or something like that, and dodging rats and this kind of thing. And I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I imagined. This is so awesome. And then before I even got out of there, he's like, yeah, dude, sorry, I've got to cut this. I'm having, whatever's going on in my life.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And I'm like, wow, that is really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That I don't have any control over this and my story and this character, I basically shelved it then for another year or two, only to play. I played a little bit with my son. Like I wrote up a little bit of some G-rated Fallout stuff, just to sort of test the mechanics and sort of, did something with him. And his character was escaping a village that was being attacked by raiders,
Oh, nice.
That was sort of the setup from him. And he had to go and find his parents or whatever. And we did like 2 sessions, and, it was all a bit of fun, and basically forgot about it until I became aware through YouTube that you could do stuff solo. And that really blew my mind and honestly changed my life for the better. That is.
I agree. I've played TTRPGs for a while now. Lots of times groups, kind of a forever GM. Like, I had similar experiences where it was like we played and then we ended, and I was like, okay, that was like a lot of jokes. Like if you were to like write down a recap of like what happened in the session, it'd be like 2 sentences. And I was like, yeah, like I need more. I need to be able to like actually see where this story is going.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to find solo as well. It was actually during COVID. Our streaming group like stopped getting together in person, like the little bits we were and all this stuff. And we had our kid, who that throws a wrench into scheduling as well. And so I was like, I still need to play. I need to play something. So that's when I found solo, and I have never looked back and will never look back.
Yeah. It's just the most wonderful thing.
And I want to come back to something you said earlier. We'll probably do it later, but about stopping the story and like, familiarity with video games and stuff like that, just being like the inspiration. But before we get there, the second question for the intro is, what have you been playing lately? Yes.
Now this question, or the answer, depends a lot on how lately you want to look, how far we stretch back.
I know. Yeah, I know. And I know you're pretty busy. You like to play a lot of games now.
I like to play a lot of games, which is what it's, we'll talk about that as well, I'm sure. Technically, in the most recent 3 games I've played.
Yeah, let's do with that. Yeah.
Today, I've been playing, just before recording this, my second session of Beetle Knight. Are you familiar with Beetle Knight?
I've heard of it. I've not played it.
So Beetle Knight is really lovely. I have an interview coming up with Jim Hall, the designer, and it is a love letter to Hollow Knight.
Yeah, Hollow Knight.
I don't think it's officially stated in here, but I think it's pretty clear that it's a love letter to Hollow Knight. It's really, a lot of the mechanics as well are quite video gamey, which is pretty cool for solo, actually. And especially for, I don't know if it's just me, but because I play a lot of games, I do find that I like to play different games in different ways and sort of get different things out of the play sessions depending on what sort of a game it is. And so for a smaller, more procedural, less narrative experience, I find it really useful to have multiple types of experiences. Sometimes I don't have the creative energy to do big stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to sit down quietly and draw up some hexes or draw up a dungeon map or something like that. And so for the relatively high procedure, low requirement on narrative stuff, I've been really, really enjoying that. And it has, and this is a preview, I guess, for my episode that'll come out shortly, it has a 3-layered hex map, which is really cool.
Now I need to check that out, because I had a very similar idea for a game I'm designing, which was, not to get into this, but like I want to play it in the real world. And so I recommend people go get a road atlas of like your region. And like, there's your overland map. And then the GM can prepare a like neighborhood scale map. And then if you really ever had to get into it, you could do a hex grid, like battle map kind of thing.
That's a lovely idea.
Yeah, and so I've seen people talk about it online, but I've never seen it like actually executed. So now Beetle Knight is 100% on my get list.
Yeah, check it out. It's really simple, but it makes sense. I mean, you have the underground, the forest floor, and the canopy, right?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And when you draw locations for each hex, it'll tell you how many exits it has, and it might say this also goes up to the canopy, because it's a tree.
I love it.
It's really, really nicely implemented. All done with card draws, Anyway, so that's number one, most recent game I've been playing. The game before that I actually played and not just talked about, because I do sort of started trialing some formats of episodes where I sort of do a first look and world building stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So that one goes to Daggerheart, but I haven't played that yet. Before that, the game I played, I believe, was Dolmenwood.
Oh, yeah?
No, technically it was the One Ring.
Oh, I don't know how I haven't soloed the One Ring yet, especially with Strider mode. But I have a group of friends who I know would love it. Like, they're all Tolkien nerds. So I'm like, please let me run this game for you. But I think at some point I just got to solo it. How was the One Ring?
So really interesting. My biggest problem with it is not a problem with it, but rather with me. And it's that I'm not enough of a Tolkien nerd, or I feel like I'm not. And I'm just constantly second guessing myself about like what might be going on here in this part of the world at this time, because I just don't know the lore.
Yeah.
A very silly thing to get caught up on, because Tolkien won't be reading my play reports, and no one will be coming for me.
And you know what? Even if From Beyond the Grave he did, I don't think your take on Tolkien is going to be the one that makes him roll over.
That's
there's
true.
A lot of people who very much malign Tolkien.
That could well be it. Yeah.
But I do agree. We had a discussion about this on my friends group podcast a while ago about playing games in established canon, and how sometimes it's like the best thing because people know even a little bit to just get going. But then sometimes it's a pain, especially with stuff like Tolkien or like Avatar, The Last Airbender is one we talked about, where there are people who know so much that it becomes almost like constricting or scary because you don't want to step on canon, event toes or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that absolutely can have its advantages and disadvantages, depending on the group, depending on you, the player. I mean, again, solo, you actually don't have to worry about any of that stuff because it's just you. That's
true.
The nice thing. Yeah. And what's really interesting about the One Ring for solo, I found, we did it for our book club with the Solo Roleplayers book club, which is great because it sort of gets us to play games in a certain time frame, just like a book club.
It's such a good
does.
idea.
Wonderful. Yeah, I highly recommend it. And in fact, anyway. So we did it for our book club, and what I discovered through the process of that is that there are really 3 and a bit significantly different ways of playing it solo. So you have options, right? I mean, you have the Strata mode, which is the first official way of doing it, which is really good, I think, just in itself. It's really quite robust. It's broad enough and loose enough that you can stretch out into the sandboxy style of things, and then using the oracles that it has in there is also nice because, it's nice if you have oracles that are specifically for the game. It somehow makes me feel more canon about it,
Yeah.
So that was really nice. And some of the mechanics are really cool that really work well for solo. Like you have the Eye of Sauron, how much focus you're getting from the enemy,
Yeah, I love that the die has the eye on it, and then yeah, that's got to feel like crazy when you roll it and go, oh no,
Yeah, exactly, it does, and then bad stuff happens. It's cool. The second way to play it is the way I played, which is with a fan-made supplement called Boromir Lives. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
It is.
You got me writing down a big list here. I love it.
Excellent. It is an absolute labor of love. Unfortunately, as usual, I'm not prepared enough to have looked up anything about who did it, but I really appreciate and respect you for what you have done, author of Boromir Lives.
I will cut myself in right here and let people know.
As promised, here I am. It is by Will at the World's End, and the link for Boromir Lives is in the description.
Awesome. And yeah, it's a affordable or free maybe digital thing on TTRPG, and it is such an interesting approach. It is you get to create an alternate version of the Tolkien history of the history of the One Ring, as if Boromir had lived. So you play Boromir. Instead of dying to the orcs, where he died, he fell into the river and was washed downstream and woke up really injured, and has to then try and follow the ring bearer and get to him. And so there's really interesting mechanics about how far behind the ring bearer you are, how far behind you both, the orcs, are. And based on how you're rolling, and when you roll that Eye of Sauron, like the orcs get sort of closer behind you. And it has its own little like map and sort of hex crawl where you're following the ring bearer and sort of mostly trying to stay out of combat because you're weakened most of the time, and just sort of seeing what happens. And it's done in a way that allows you to learn the game by playing it, which is my preferred way of learning a game anyway, which I'll talk about later as well. And I really did. I mean, I found that game quite difficult to learn, actually, for some reason. But then doing it using Boromir Lives and just looking up stuff as they came up, I found an incredibly engaging way to learn. And it's written in such a way that there's enough space left around the descriptions, and it doesn't tell you exactly how to play it necessarily, which I can see being frustrating to people. But if you sort of let that go, and you maybe you need to have some experience, maybe not, then it allows for that breathing room for you to make each location or encounter as big and detailed or as small and hand wavy as you like. And I think that was a really, really effective thing. The third way to play it is with the Moria rules, which I do have. Yes.
I didn't even realize there was more solo rules in there.
Quite extensive solo rules in there, I believe. And that's the way I want to play it. But I figured I wouldn't throw that extra overhead on me just yet, because it is sort of in addition to the strata rules sort of. And that allows you to delve into Moria as a party. And it has, I believe, quite innovative rules for playing a hero, but then also managing your band of dwarves in quite a tactical resource management, bookkeepy kind of a way, which might be music to your ears or not. But it sounds really cool to me, and that is how that's what I'm working toward. I'm going to do the Boromir's story, and then during my play of Boromir's Lives, I ran into 2 NPCs. I've already decided that when I start, that's going to be my character and companion, and we're going to make our way down to Moria. So I'm going to do strata rules until we get to Moria. And then when I get to Moria, convert it into the Moria rules. That's my overall plan for the
See, and it comes together. You can weave it all together.
And the third final thing, is Dolmen Wood, which is my absolute love of. I'm not even going to say the moment. I think it's a bigger love than just of the moment.
Ooh.
So much so that I've dedicated the entire month of December, which is now in the past. But I did dedicate the entire month of December to Dolmen Wood, and doing a lot of content about that. And that is just a dream. A weird, sometimes slightly creepy dream, but in a really good way. It is so imaginative and rich, and just wonderful setting. The setting especially. I mean, the rules, I don't know yet how much I adore or not the OSR style rules. I quite like them, but I'm still not, I don't know. But mostly the setting. It's just really wonderful.
Then that can carry so much, right? I mean, if the mechanics aren't your cup of tea, but you really just want to play in that world, you could find ways around that. But it's very hard to go the other way around, right? Like, if you found a game where you're like, man, I love these mechanics, but this setting is not my thing, unfortunately, you're kind of stuck.
Exactly.
Unless you're willing to take on a lot more work.
So that's what I've been playing. Those are the 3 most recent, but in a long list. Line.
Yes. Yeah. And if you listener are curious, definitely check out PJ's Solo Roleplayers podcast, because it is a trove of lots of games, lots of talking about games, interviews. If you like this show, you're going to love that. You're going to love Solo Roleplayers.
Thank you.
But to transition, normally this is the segue question of what are we talking about today?
Yeah, let's start talking now, shall we?
I was going to say, I think people get the vibe. I think they know where we're at. But to go back to A Wasteland Story, huge fan. So glad you kept going with that. And it was kind of inspired by, you knew Fallout, and you'd wanted to play this game. So how much of being a fan of Fallout was just like, this is all I need? And like, you run it with Mythic, because that's a way to do solo for anything. did you do a lot of homework before? Like, did you read cover to cover both of them and be like, I'm ready to go? Or did you just start going in because you were like, I know Fallout, I'll figure out the rest?
Absolutely the latter.
Yeah.
And it was also, I think it was it was accidental, but the fact that I was so fresh-faced going into it, it was essentially my first proper solo role-playing experiment, was doing A Wasteland Story. And going in so fresh-faced and really not knowing anything about anything was, I think, really, really beneficial. I didn't bring any preconceptions in, really. I didn't have to spend all my time worrying about, am I using the right tools? I only knew of one tool, and that was Mythic. And only because I had seen someone, one of the past guests from my show, Thomas from Board Games with Thomas, and he started playing a few sessions with Mythic, and I thought, what's Mythic? Can I play Fallout solo? Really? May I, please? And then I just, So to me, that's what it was. And I didn't. I mean, I think it's really hard. Can be hard for people in this hobby because there's so much information out there. There is no right way to play, and it can be paralyzing, I think. And I talk about that quite a lot on my show.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Wasteland Story. Yeah, I think it was really the perfect way for me to start, not knowing anything else and just having one rule set, one tool set, and just going.
And yeah, like that, there is no right way to play is a great outlook to have, right? Because that is the analysis paralysis, or, you get bogged down and like, did I do this right? It's like, did you enjoy it? That's all you need, right?
Yeah.
But also, like you said, like you could just imagine yourself walking around in the world of Fallout where it's this,
yes.
like, I'm ready to do this. It already kind of leans into that. You're ready to start storytelling kind of aspect of it. I have a couple questions about A Wasteland Story.
Yes.
Here's my first curveball, because I didn't send this in the outline to you.
Excellent.
But regarding something you said earlier about video games and how you knew the video games, you liked the video games, all this, but I was listening to a podcast recently and they were talking about how they don't like that when you say RPG nowadays, people think of video games because you're doing role-playing games, but like in their opinion, RPGs are about the story. And TTRPGs do that better because no matter how good a video game is, no matter how sandboxy it is, you don't control the story. In the end, there is only so many branching options to make your version of it. Whereas TTRPGs, you can do whatever you want with the story. You know,
that's the special sauce.
Yeah. And like, did you just like catch that right away and just, like Sasuke, did you have ideas from that first rip where you were like, oh, the play-by-post failed, but no, I know where this is going and I just need to see it through?
This happened I will answer your question by telling you what happened.
Yeah.
Because in my very first play session, I thought I knew what was going to happen, loosely. And that was that I wanted to make a backstory for this character who was a member of, although not necessarily willing, I didn't know, but a member of the Brotherhood of Steel somewhere up north in Vancouver, right? And so I said, well, I'm going to do the backstory. Like, how do we get there? And I felt like that was my only thing. I didn't know how long. Maybe it's years until she got up there. I don't know. But I know she starts further down south and she makes her way up north because I wanted to set it in the part of the world that Fallout 1 and 2 happened in, because those are the games that I played and loved. And the idea that I had was, okay, so I have an idea for a scene, which came from something that happened in the play-by-post. To be clear, I did, after that initial play-by-post session, I joined another group, another Discord server, which is where this Vancouver thing happened, and played a little bit more, and then actually got through some stuff, and that was cool.
Yeah.
But then you have to wait for people, when you have to be on, people are waiting for you, and different things.
Right.
So I had the idea that, okay, Sasuke is been rescued by this Brotherhood of Steel member, this young guy, and they're going to go on adventure together, right? And that was my very first setup scene. He was injured. He saved me. Okay, now I'm going to do this fate question thing with Mythic, so I just have to ask something. Sorry, my light just turned off.
I'm sorry.
And that is because this happens all the time. My Patreons know about this light. When I did a Shadow Dark campaign, I wanted a light timer. Yeah. And so I got like a timer and plugged the lamp into it, which is a really cool thing to happen when you're mid-playing and then the lights go out and you're like, oh, man.
Yeah. Torches.
That constantly happens in interviews that my light goes out. So 1 second. So I did that very first mythic question. My first question was, does the boy live?
Yeah.
No.
What a great first question to just be like, I think I know where this is going, and then just go, now I got to roll with it.
Right. And it happened very early in my very first play session, like within the first 10 minutes or something. And that happened. And then it dawned on me that I just went, oh, wow, I have no idea what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And I just kept going. And I don't know if I got lucky. I think the biggest thing, like you said, I knew the games. And I think that's a big piece of advice to people, especially trying to get started. I never have any issue coming up with what is going on in the Fallout world because I know the world so well. I mean, anyone who plays video games, especially if you played them in your younger years and spend a lot of time in one game, like you do when you're young, you know these worlds inside out, you know. And Fallout 2 especially, I'd put countless hours into and sort of knew everything back and forth. So it was never, ever, ever a question or a worry of what the world looks like around me, things that could happen, how to interpret things. And I found it just an incredibly smooth experience then, luckily. And and I think knowing that world really, really, really helped. But that's as much of the story as I knew. We end up there. She hasn't got there yet. I'm nearly at the end of the first season.
Yep.
Like I've played through the whole first season a year ago or more. And, she's not up there yet. So.
Yeah. And I just want to also, again, as a fan, I love the process of your recording as somebody who had to figure out how do I make a solo game interesting audio wise? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we all kind of have our own ways of doing it. But when I first heard your Wasteland Story format, where it's you recording your playing, like you can hear you just kind of like talking in a room, rolling some dice, being like, okay, let me write this down. And then you cut yourself in with some narration of like, okay, I took what happened and I wrote a nice scene to get you through the story part. And I was like, oh, this is so good. This is such a good format, as opposed to me sometimes sitting here going, okay, let me roll this dice, flip this card. And then I just like hit pause and I'm like, okay, all right, what am I doing? You know what I mean? I very much enjoy the format.
It is a wonderful format. And it was entirely accidental. And I'm so glad the dice landed that way, because I did not have any plan for what I was going to do when I started playing. I just know I have a background in audio. I've made podcasts up until recently as part of my real life job as well, and some storytelling stuff and journalism-y stuff, that kind of thing. And so to me that was quite natural. And so I thought, I want to play solo. I don't like my handwriting, nor do I like writing stuff down all that much. I just want to play. And so to me, the most natural thing in the world was, I'm just going to put my phone on the table and record it, and maybe I'll do something with it later. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll just transcribe it and, like, I don't know, turn it into a blog. I don't know. I don't really care. Yeah. I don't really want to make a blog. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to record it. And that was really, really, really freeing. And I had played probably 12 or more sessions before I even started making the podcast, I think, and before I started knowing what the podcast was.
Yeah. And
not only was that a really wonderful way for me to play, because I wasn't too much worried about narrative cohesion, because I wasn't making it for anyone. Mm-hmm. I wasn't worried too much about what I was doing or the rules or anything like that. And I could just talk out loud. And that was, like I said, really natural to me based on my background. And then what I found is when I went back and started writing what is essentially an audio drama, right? Like, kind of. Yeah. When I started writing that, I realized, never having really written anything, but always been interested in writing. I used to write in high school and I was always good at it, but my biggest struggle with writing was blank page stuff, and sitting down and not knowing what to do or running out of steam and, this kind of thing. And so accidentally this show made me write something, and I'm now, and it's almost indescribable, the experience of collaborating with someone, and that someone happens to be my past self, right?
Yeah.
Because when I'm writing now, especially now, I'm writing to audio that I recorded 18 months ago, And I remember like beats of what's going on in the story. And then I'm listening, like, just like you guys, I'm listening like, oh, what's happened? And then I can, and from the perspective of the issue of, focus and concentration and having trouble sitting down and actually doing stuff, some of us experience this thing all the time. The fact that all I need to do is press play. And if I press play, it gives me the next prompt of what I need to write. And that just accidentally turned out to be the exact thing that I needed to be able to do this. I'm finding myself now, I am actually writing a novel, essentially. I mean, I'm doing...
That's awesome.
Like 7,000 or 8,000 words an episode in the script. And by the time this is over, it's book size.
Right. Yeah, it will be. And it's just something that, and again, if you never told anybody, this came from me sitting in a room with my phone on, rolling dice to see what happens next. The way that you can revisit it and rewrite it to flow in this, like, it all makes sense how this is coming together. Yeah. No one would know, I think I think sneakily solo tools are a writing tool that people have yet to like really catch on to, but we'll see.
And especially, I mean, that is another piece of luck that I had was coming across Mythic as my first thing, because Mythic is geared towards larger cohesive narratives. And it's purely because of its mechanics that, I mean, also I like narratives and read books and want things to have the right arc and that kind of thing. So I guess I'm internalized, or at least I'm internally aware of that, even if it's unconsciously. But, the fact that with the character lists on Mythic and the way that it throws characters back at you and makes them continually important, that is really, really wonderful for this larger narrative arc and for writing. And it created the villain of my story, which I think in the episodes we're only just figuring out who that is.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, I hadn't thought of that, but it's so good because sometimes with a sprawling narrative and like, especially like long distance travel and all this stuff, like you kind of meet somebody and then you never see them again kind of thing. But it's really nice to have those characters that people can like go, oh yeah, I really liked them and how they changed and what they're bringing now to my changed character affect this thing. Like that's a great way to keep the past of a character alive. You know what I mean? Like show how much they've changed, evolved. That's great.
And there's a realization that came from that, which I think is another great lesson for people out there who are players or want to be players, solo role players, is that I had to get over a little bit of a psychological hurdle, just a tiny one, with those characters, when the character list was small. And I'm like, okay, well, like, who do I meet here now? It's like, oh, well, this guy again. Or like, who do I come across in the Wasteland? Oh, this guy again. And originally I'm like, but that feels unrealistic. And then I remember sitting and thinking, it's like, yeah, but that's how books work. Like that's how stories work. You have these important characters that come back. It's like, yeah, it's unlikely you would run into them of all people again. You of all people, in all bars in the world, whatever that thing is.
Of all the gin joints in the world, right?
Exactly, right? But that's how stories work, And so as soon as I realized that, and lent into it, it really helps sort of craft that narrative and also make you care about these characters, because they keep coming back, and then they're forced to have trials and tribulations because they keep coming up on your dice. And I took that forward into all my other solo role playing as well, even when not using Mythic, which I actually don't use all that much anymore outside of Fallout and the future A Witch's Story, which is a bit of a reveal, but it's very future.
Nice. That's very cool.
Just that idea that like Matt Risby from The Bad Spot said it as well, either in an interview with him or just said it sometime, but the importance of tying your threads together. Like you always have all these threads. If you're looking for an answer, just try and tie some of those threads together. And even though it might feel unrealistic, it's absolutely how stories work. And it is, your stories are better off for it and your enjoyment of the narrative.
Yeah. Yes. I always think that to myself. I think it was like in my second Sundered Isles season, I think I was like 6 or 7 episodes in. I usually only do like a dozen episodes ish for my series because one of these days I will do a big sprawling campaign, but for me, I have too many games to play. So I like kind of limit myself to like, let's get one nice arc in, see if we can resolve stuff. But I was like, my threads, as we think of them, or as I think of them, were so spread out. I was like, I have no idea how I'm ever going to get this one over here again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it did just kind of work out that like anytime you had these questions, it's just like, what would be the most crazy thing? And like, you kind of go like, haven't seen this in a while. But yeah, Mythic baking that into the structure and the mechanics is very good. And it may seem like whiplash, but it will serve your story well.
Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of many games, how many games do you tend to juggle at a time? Because you just said lately, let's do the top 3. Like,
how many games do I juggle at a time? I mean, realistically, like stories.
Yeah.
Like 8 or 10.
Wow. That's a good number.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. Last night, actually, we watched a movie with the family, and it's a movie we've seen a bunch of times before, right? And my wife she has an incredible memory for dates and plans and detail and all this sort of stuff, which I'm completely and utterly useless on. But when it comes to stories, I remember stories, and we watched this movie for the, kids movie, Zootopia, Zoomania in Germany for some reason. And like, she doesn't know, she's like, oh, I can't remember any of this story. And I thought that's odd because my memory is not great, but stories, I have absolutely no problem keeping them all in my head at once. And when I say I'm playing 8, I mean, some of them, it's actually probably more. It's as many of the main games that I've done on the show, right? Which is...
because you've just kept them kind of going. You can't just drop it, right?
Right. Dragonbane, Shadow Dark, One Ring, Starforged, Forbidden Lands.
That's another one. That's another one I got to get to the table is Forbidden Lands. Oh,
all that stuff. And even though, like... some of them are old, right? Some of them I haven't played in a while, but Shadow Dark was a recent example. I recently did a play of Shadow Dark after not having played for 8 months or something like that. And I found it absolutely no problem at all to jump straight back into the story, or at least the feeling of the story. The details I don't necessarily remember, but I remember the vibes and the characters and the world. And so that's generally enough. I have started transcribing all my old episodes and sort of summarizing them into like story notes because it is getting unwieldy otherwise, and that's been really helpful as well. But yeah, pretty much at least 10 stories at once, and all of them I feel pretty comfortable to pull up again and kind of just keep going.
Just dive right in. Yeah, that's awesome. I have usually 1 or 2 solo games going at a time whenever I'm podcasting, whenever I'm thinking about playing, or it will not be a good podcast. Again, thinking for audio, there's some games where I'm just like, I don't think I can make this mechanic fun to listen to. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, especially the more procedural ones. Like Notorious, I was actually really happy to do. But one of my first solo podcasting experiences was this game called Miru, which I still think is an amazing game. Well. It's very good. Listening back to it, I'm like, oh, this is me being like, let me roll for the next hex. Let me draw this next hex. Let me do this thing and then roll for this encounter. And it was like, that's great. I shouldn't have played it so almost the board gamey style that it is for audio. So I'll play those games off and then I'm always reading like 2 books at a time and all this stuff. So story overload, I just wanted to know because I know you're always talking, oh yeah, playing this game. Go to the Patreon. We're going to be playing this game. I'm like, wow, that's a lot to juggle.
I'm also a multiple book reader as well. I adore my Kindle and I just open up whichever book I feel like reading at the time and find that I'm straight back wherever I was usually.
I'll have to get a recommendation from you before we're done.
Cool.
So, you know what? That actually works. I think that the real crux of what I want to frame this interview as is get those games off your shelf. I've heard you say that, and I love it. I love that as like a slogan or just like a reminder to yourself. Like,
yes,
I can see your shelves right there next to you. I'm sure you can see mine behind me.
Yeah.
I'm probably sitting somewhere at the 35% played, percentage, which is
that's not bad. If it's a big shelf.
I know, but it's like, no excuses. I got to just keep pulling it off and going, now it's time to do this one.
Yeah.
So my question is, a lot of people, especially right now, TTRPGs are blowing up. Solo RPGs are having a moment. So, I think a lot of us back and buy and read these games, but, do you have like a priority list, or do you just, like you said with your books, do you just like look at one point and just go, that one? And just,
yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, so I'm someone who basically I just live by feel, right? You said as well that you're a musician.
Yes.
Me too. And I'm very much a feel musician, right? I'm not interested in reading stuff and doing it exactly the same every time. I want to just play the groove, you know, this kind of thing. This is that's where I'm happiest. And, advantages and disadvantages to live your life like that. Sure.
Yeah. It's not perfect.
Yeah. But I did very early on, and it was actually the creation of the Solo Roleplayers podcast that got me doing this. I'd never planned to make a second podcast. Wasteland Story is my podcast. It just happens to have been pretty severely overshadowed by my side project, which has become way, way bigger. And some astute listeners and fans of A Wasteland Story may note that they're a bit less frequent these days, and that is not at all out of me not adoring it. It is my baby. I absolutely love that story. Every time I sit down, get an opportunity to sit down to write, I really, really adore it. It is my absolute favorite thing. I just now have this whole other big podcast and, all this sort of stuff, and more work, and real job and all this kind of thing. But very early on, I decided I wanted to interview other people in the hobby, and I wanted to talk to people who helped me get started, because I was so happy and thrilled and enheartened by finding this hobby that I really wanted to sort of give back. And there were a handful of content creators on YouTube mostly had sort of who had helped give me permission to actually sit down and try. Yeah. Which sounds ridiculous, but I feel like everyone gees through that experience. And they're like, yeah, but I can't do it because I don't know what to do, which I think is a totally natural thing. And just hearing, yes, but there is no right way, while being incredibly true is also incredibly frustrating, because you want some guidance, you want some rules, you want something to know if you're doing it right, or at least until you learn what you like. And so that's why I started the second podcast. And then when I'd already interviewed someone, I thought, well, maybe I want to play some more games. I've got collecting a big shelf of stuff. I'm only playing Fallout and the occasional smaller game. Maybe I can just play something else, but I don't have time to do that because Fallout takes me it's so much writing, and I'm very slow. And I thought, well, what if I just sort of, rather than recording on my phone like I did for Fallout and coming back to it, what if I just sort of did something sort of in the middle and made it a bit more polished and a little bit more edited and, performative in a way? Yeah. You can tell from the Fallout actual play part of it. It is not at all performative. That is just me talking out loud. I'm almost unaware that I have an audience. In fact, I didn't have an audience because I didn't know what I was going to do with it at the time, right? And then, and then I pulled Dragonbane off the shelf and said, I'm going to try this solo. And that was my first actual play on the podcast. And then I thought that was kind of fun. Maybe I can just do more books, And then I pulled off, I can't remember, I think it was Crown and Skull maybe I did next.
Oh, yeah.
And Crown and Skull, I mean, Dragonbane I already knew a little bit. I'd played a couple of sessions. Crown and Skull I'd never even opened, really. And so other than having a bit of osmosis awareness of part of the weird parts of the system, or the unusual parts of the system, other than that, I didn't know the book. And I just started playing and learning it by actually playing it, and realized that this is a great way to play, because I also, talking about struggling with focus, I can sit down with a book and just not get very far, and then I pick it up 3 weeks later and forgotten what I'd done, and it doesn't stick in my brain as much, the rules necessarily. And so, just pulling it off the shelf and starting to play, not worrying. And actually, a few people had said, I think Tana was one of them on the show, and she said, just don't worry about it. If you don't know a rule, just ask Mythic. I thought, okay, that's cool, because I want to find the rule, but if I can't, it's not going to grind my session to a halt.
Right.
And so, it was with that attitude that I started pulling stuff off and just learning it by rolling dice and building the world and the character and the story as I went. And I wouldn't go back, and I'd highly recommend it to everyone, so that these books of ours don't become weight on your soul, but rather opportunity. And you don't need to know everything to play. It doesn't need to be a big burden to read a massive, thick book. Right.
Yeah, a lot of I haven't picked big ones. I haven't picked very many big games to solo, but most of my first episodes are like, I've skimmed the rules, I know the major mechanic, and I'm just kind of gonna stream of consciousness go. Yeah, and then you kind of just you find your groove. Like I've found out after entire series have gone out where I'm just like, oh, like I totally ignored this like pretty major rule, but like it didn't hurt my story. You know what I mean? That's fine.
Yeah, and there are no rules police. It's not a board game where
right.
Getting the rules wrong means that you're actually, you didn't really win. It's not
There's no asterisk on your score for a solo
RPG. Exactly. And of all the emails and stuff that I get from listeners of the show, the biggest thing that comes back is thank you for giving me permission to not know the rules properly before I start playing. And I didn't realize, like, I didn't go out planning to do that. It's just that's the way it worked for me because I'm bad at reading a book cover to cover, a rule book, normal books I can read cover to cover, and that's just how it worked. And the fact that people have found that really useful, I think, is telling in this hobby. And a sticking point that doesn't need to be so sticky.
Yes, I think more people just need to maybe not feel a little uncomfortable, but just like dip your toe in, just try it out.
Yes.
And speaking of the interview, you've done a few now with Tana Pigeon, mythic creator and designer, and sure. I know that you two have talked about the approach of like taking on solo published adventures, doing them solo, which was something that she focused hard on, I think, for Mythic 2. But like, is that something does that affect games you pick? Have you tried doing that anymore? Because much like you were saying, you don't want to get a rule wrong, or you don't want, I don't know how to play, so I can't play it. A campaign or a published adventure is almost like you can't read it.
Yeah.
Because,
it is a very interesting challenge and question. And unfortunately, as is to be expected by now, there's no right answer. I've tried a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, I think, and I don't know what my way is yet, and I think I do it differently every time now just based on what I'm feeling. Surprise, surprise. But I think it's very tricky. And I think you have to... Sorry, are you asking me how to do it or how I do it?
Well, no, I think actually, let me rephrase that question. Yeah. More to be, that's something that has come up as a solo hurdle, right? Like some people might get stuck on, I don't know how to tell the story without the mechanics, or I don't know what to do next, and I don't feel comfortable journaling. Like, am I writing enough, or did I do this right, or whatever? And I know one of Tana's concerns was, how do you solo publish stuff? I guess let's broaden the question to, are there any gaps in solo games that you've realized or recognized and been like, oh, like I want to find out how to do that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
kind of. I mean, I think published adventures is the big one.
Yeah.
And I think it is so attractive because there's this wealth of content out there that we feel like is locked away from us somehow. And I think there's ways to do it, and I've explored a few of them. For me, what I'm missing, which I'm sort of in theory now creating because I tend to make the things I don't have. What I'm missing is a modular system that allows one to hack into different parts of the game that the game itself lacks. Because from all the games that I've played, one of the main things I've come away with is that they all have their strengths and weaknesses in terms of the parts of the processes. Right. And so Forbidden Lands, for example, is an excellent example. Forbidden Lands has a fantastic procedural component to it when it comes to traveling around in the overworld.
I was just going to say the hex crawl procedures are great. Yeah.
Hex crawl procedures are great, and they're really, really wonderful for solo play, I find, because it allows you to sort of dip in and out of the story parts as much as you want and sort of lean into the procedural parts as much as you want as well. If you're really story-wise mostly interested in getting from point A to point B, you can sort of just work your way there. Yep. And it gives you something to hang on to, because if you don't know what to do, you say, okay, well, I'll explore a new hex. Or what happens at the beginning of the day? Roll for weather. And then something will spark an idea. All of a sudden I rolled, and this happened in one of my off-mic Forbidden Lands things, rolled like 5 days of heavy rain in one go.
Oof.
And so... that then changed the story. And then I started getting more into the narrative of my character. Well, she's in a cave here and she's learning now how to cook, and or whatever. And scavenging and mixing potions, whatever it happened to be, And so you can kind of just fall back on the procedures until something grabs you enough to continue with the narrative, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it lacks other things like maybe the dungeon crawling aspect, or
Yep.
you know, another game might have other rules that are really focused on and really great for solo play in the book, but then lack sort of other things. And so what I'm missing is a modular tool that can allow you to hack in and sort of replace or hand wave certain mechanics or elements of the game while using as much of the content in that original book, like in the game book, as possible.
Yeah.
And it sort of does evolve from that Tana's idea of, if you don't know, just ask Mythic, which I think is a great thing to move on. But also sometimes I'm like, but I still want more crunch from it.
This particular flavor from this particular game. You know, I don't want to completely remove it and just go to Mythic for an Oracle roll or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. I actually, that's something I've been meaning to talk to some other folks about, or, you know, maybe you've done this as well. But one of my big things is I really want to use multiple games to tell one story. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like one big overarching adventure, but based on maybe the point of view character we're following, or where we are in the world, or anything like that, or just what we're doing in the moment. Use a different game to do that section of the story and then zoom back out to the bigger kind of thing.
Yes. Not something I've thought about extensively, but I do think, now that you say it, I do know another friend of the show, Carl from the Lone Adventurer.
That's where I got the idea. Yeah.
Right.
So like, I want to reach out to Carl and be like, oh, you're on season 3 of 3 different games of one story. Like that's so cool, you know?
And it's something like I talked to him. I had a lovely opportunity for work for my old job. I was in London for a few days recently, like 6 months ago, something like that, and managed to meet up at a pub with Carl in London, and
that's awesome.
Had too many pints with Carl and had a wonderful raucous night talking to another actual fellow human who is a solo role player he's actually the only one I've met in real life, you know. And that was great. And he was talking about that. But I think what that is, and your idea of wanting to do that as well, I think that's really great proof to show that it's the story that matters and not actually the mechanic, right?
The game, right, yeah.
And and being able to tell that same story and then come at it from different angles, like I think that's it doesn't take long to think about it, and it makes you sort of refocus and think, it's the story that's important.
It takes a special kind of nerd to be like, I have the games and I know enough of the games to say which one works where and when, but at the same time, I think that there's value in it and that could be very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And to quickly segue before we get to closing questions, because we're running up on that hour. I don't want to keep you all day and we're on different times, but you spoke of Carl and just wanted, maybe if you wanted to tell people about the Solo Roleplayers Network.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Solo Roleplayers Network is it's a collaboration of audio content, currently audio content creators who do solo roleplayers stuff. And it was sort of born from, I'd been in touch with John from Tale of the Manticore.
Yes.
Tale of the Manticore, since I interviewed him early on in the show as well. He was one of the inspirations for high production quality in a solo podcast, right?
Yeah.
And we really hit it off. He's a great guy and, you know, having a good time. And he invited me to he said, oh, look, I have a small group of other creators that we sort of like chat sometimes and sometimes meet up, and invited me to join that group. And that was really cool. That's how I found Carl as a guest, and also Simon from Legend of the Bones. I have another guest coming up in a while probably, but also from there, collection of just solo RPG enthusiasts and audio content creators. As is often the case, I had this grand idea that I knew I had no capacity to actually do. And we were just throwing ideas around about like, what can we do? What can we be here as a collective? And I had been thinking about this idea for a while and wanting to do it myself, but knowing I wasn't going to be able to go through with it. And I just sort of brought it up and said, well, hey, why don't we make a network? We can do a, rising tide, all ships type situation here, because within the group there were some more established people like Tale of the Manticore, Carl, Legend of the Bones, some of those household names in solo role-playing podcasts. But then there were also a lot of new people coming in who didn't have much of a foothold yet. And so we thought, well, hey, why don't we just band together as a collective, support each other, have a point of access that fans can get to, and find other content that is high quality audio solo role playing stuff. That if you like this, you might like this sort of thing. And so that was really as simple as that. And then very, very grateful to Brian from Swords Against Madness, who then put in all the work to do the website end of things, which I absolutely didn't have the brain space or ability to do. And for John, like John's sort of the head of the thing. He keeps everyone together, and he's
Gotcha.
the grandfather of the group there. Not to call you old John. And and so really, I can't take much credit other than sparking the initial
conversation. But that's well, and it kind of it grew my podcast feed by quite a few.
Yes,
obviously,
well,
when I
good.
found it, I was like, oh well, absolutely going to check out. Follow.
This is then the intention.
So, yeah, exactly. And like you said, rising tide lifts all ships. It really is like when you realize that even among people on the internet playing solo games, you can listen to 5 different podcasts from that list, and they're all doing it differently, or like playing different games. It all feels different, and you can see how none of them are doing the exact same thing, and yet they're all enjoyable and like following their own story and doing it in a way. One might click to you and go, finally got it.
Exactly. Or as the player who is trying to figure out what kind of solo role player they are, pulling little ideas and say, I really like the way that Carl uses the multiple games to tell one story, or the way that whatever.
Absolutely.
And take those bits and pieces and make yourself your perfect solo role player.
Yes. And on that, as we strive to make you all your own perfect solo role players, we could transition to closing questions. And I end the same three. I end every episode with the same 3 questions. And this first one is always fun. Dive in as much or as little as you want here. But I ask, do you have any last bits of wisdom, advice, or homework for listeners?
I do. All 3 of those things.
All 3.
Or at least 2. I don't know about wisdom.
Wisdom and advice overlap. Okay,
good. I can lean on the advice then. And it is not new to this conversation, but it is just sit down and play. Just get something off your shelf and just do it. I think treating yourself, especially if you're new, treating your first few games as a tutorial to figure out what kind of play you like without being worried about getting it wrong, having an experience that is not ideal, and then being scared. I know that was part of it for me, being scared that, well, if I don't like this, like I really want to like this hobby, if I have a bad experience, that means I can't do it. I'm terrible. I'm not creative enough. It's, and that would be really upsetting. And rather than thinking of it like that, thinking that, or realize that you will ultimately find the perfect way for you to play, which is completely different from everyone else. So just try things out. Treat those early sessions as a tutorial for how to learn the game of solo role playing. And so that's my first piece of advice. My homework, also get books off your shelf. Don't let them collect dust. There's so many great worlds in there. You don't need to know the rules properly. Get them off your shelf.
Yeah.
My third bit of my third thing, which is homework, relates to the first 2 things I said, which is I announced last month in December the Solo Role Players 20-minute challenge. And if you missed it in December, that is okay. I give you permission to still take on this challenge at any time in the future, every week if you want to. And that is the idea that you pick a system, you pick a tool or 2, as little as possible, to play with it. You set a timer for 20 minutes and you just sit down and play. And that has been a really, really eye-opening experience, both for me and people in our Discord. We've been talking about it a lot throughout the course of this challenge, how much fun people are having in 20 minutes and how you can do often have a meaningful session in 20 minutes that can really improve your day. I did it a few times before work and just sat down, did 20 minutes, and then the rest of the day I'm thinking about what's going to happen next. Really, really great. It forces you to assuage some of that, I need to prep everything, spending too much time making the table to do the thing. That's also good. That's also play. But sometimes you do need to play, I think, probably, and set that timer, sit down and do it, and you'll be surprised, and you're just forced to use what you got. And if you can't find a rule, you have to just move on because you don't have time. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that on a recent episode, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this 20-minute challenge. Like,
Yeah.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it just makes me pick one of these books. And then by the end of that 20 minutes, I'm like, well, that's not the only 20 minutes I'm ever doing this. I'm going to be diving into this for much longer.
And if you pick something new and you don't know the rules, I bet you that once you have done the 20 minutes and then you want to look at the book, you'll remember the rules better because you know what to look for. You're like, okay, how did magic work? Because I just ignored that. And then you'll remember it more because you have something to tie it into the story and your experience, So all around good thing. I don't think you listeners have any excuses not to do the 20-minute challenge. Everyone can find 20 minutes. I mean, check your screen time, right? I mean, there's 20 minutes, plenty of 20 minutes is in the day that did not go to anything that you needed to be doing, I'm sure. So, yeah.
Yes. That's great homework. Now, for you, I'm going to turn it around, and this is a big question for you. So feel free to pare this back as much as you need to, because normally I ask people, are there any games that you're dying to get to the table? Which, as we both can attest to, all of them. But
yes.
or maybe this one's more appealing as a question. Ideas you have yet to get to a table. Like that could be a character, it could be like a plot hook, or like I answered this in one of my own as an example to someone, and I've still yet to do it, which is I kind of want to create like a side quest for my home group where they realize two NPCs are like trying to like date and they have to play matchmaker. Like I think that's a funny thing to throw into like a game at some point because it makes two NPCs. Anyway, something like that.
Building.
Yeah, exactly. Characters, plot hooks, anything like that.
Okay, so I'll try and, we could do another episode on this.
A whole nother episode, yeah.
Let's go. Hit the clock. Okay, first, things that I haven't played that I really want to play.
Yeah.
I mentioned The Witcher. I've not even opened that book. I've had it for a while, but I know when I do open it, that is the next thing, and I've known for a while. I don't know how I know it, but I know that is the next Wasteland Story style approach that I'm going to do. Probably not until after the second season of A Wasteland Story. I also have another secret Wasteland Story show I haven't actually announced yet called The Chain That Binds, which is halfway finished already. It's like an interstitial season.
Nice.
With another character who is then going to be important in the season 2 of the show. Really cool. I needed an excuse to play more Fallout.
Right.
Flow and writing A Wasteland Story. So that's, keep an ear out for that one. So The Witcher is one of them. Pendragon, I have also not opened, and something I really want to get into. And some old school stuff, old school essentials / actually play Whitehack. I've talked a lot about Whitehack in various things, and it's kind of actually, it's by far my favorite game I've never played. And I've used a lot of its ideas in the way that I play. But yeah. So yeah, that's stuff that I have not yet played, stuff that I have played that I'm dying to play again. Also Daggerheart. I'm just about to play Daggerheart. I have already built a bit of a setup for a world, which is going to be a big war, like involved in a greater war, which is something I've never done because I've just been reading The Way of Kings, which is a greater war thing. And I often pull ideas from books I've been reading in my settings. Which is a great thing to do also. Another piece of advice.
Always do that. Right. Yeah. Especially because no one's ever going to, almost no one will pick up on it. I could tell my home group or I could tell my listeners. I usually do. I have a mining media series where I kind of be like, I read this book. You should steal this stuff. But like, if you just do the little bit of work of scraping off the serial numbers and changing things a little bit, it would take a very knowledgeable nerd to call you on that. And even then you can go, yeah, it's good, right?
And it's not even, it's like we shouldn't be scared of doing that. This is what musicians do all the time without even realizing it. And writers. I mean, just the way that you're interpreting the setting or the world or the characters in your head or whatever, it's going to be different by the time it passes through you and comes out onto the mic or the page or whatever.
Absolutely.
So stuff that I want to play other than Daggerheart is going to be next. I'm very excited to try that. I think that is going to be really interesting and really good for solo with some of the mechanics there.
The Hope Despair, right? Like when I was reading that, I was like, I can see this working. So
yeah, I use a similar idea in my own sort of oracle that I use these days for everything. Not from Daggerheart actually, but from Sundered Isles.
Yes,
the moons,
like Cursed Eye. The moons.
Yeah, and also the way the spotlight thing works in that. I think I can see that as a very narrative, scene-based
cinematic.
Cinematic. Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. I can really see that game as like taking those games and finding the angles that work best for them. And for me, Dagger Heart looks like picturing a scene and then playing out this big bombastic thing, rather than an OSR thing where I have 4 people down in a dungeon who don't have much story because they're going to die. And other than that, I'm dying to get back to my Dolmenwood world, because the characters, one character already I've created in that, who is my companion, my sidekick, who I'm way more interested in than my main character at the moment. It might switch. It's just so fascinating, and that world is so rich. I'm dying to get back to that. Other than that, I don't know. I can't cut it down.
Too many.
There's too many things.
Too many good ideas. Yeah. Well, we will chip away.
Yes,
at those lists.
We will chip away at those lists and those ideas.
And the last closing question is not even a question. It is just an open invitation to tell people about what you do and where they can find you on the internet.
Yes, if you are yet to hear any of my podcasts, if you want to see what this whole narrative audio drama book thing is, radio play that I'm doing accidentally, you can go and check out A Wasteland Story, wherever you get your podcasts. I know that's not a done thing to say anymore, but it's effective. And for actual plays of more games, interviews especially is the main conceit of the show, and also now some sort of first looks of games and a bit of a peek into my process of how I set up a world before I actually learn the rules. I've been really having fun refining that idea of what I do naturally and putting it on the mic a bit. I've done it now recently with the Dolmenwood first look episode that came out, I think is the first better representation of how I make those worlds. And at some stage also, maybe it's already out, the Dagger Heart one as well shows that. That is the Solo Roleplayers podcast. And if you can't get enough of that, generally on the Solo Roleplayers podcast, I have a single actual play of the game as I just get started. And most of those stories and games I continue playing and continue recording, and I needed somewhere to put them. And so I started a Patreon to put all those extra episodes on. And so over there you get double the episodes. There's then an episode every week continuing those stories and some, whatever else is going on. We have a radio station in there where people can, as part of the Patreon, you get access to the Discord, and we have like an open channel where people can get up and just stream their plays to a friendly, low-key, non-judgmental audience, without any pressure of making a whole podcast or anything, but wanting to share your stuff. Yeah. That's been a really, really fun thing that we do there. Among other things like the book club, we have Celebrity Lounge. Celebrities come into the Discord. All good stuff. If you want to find out about that and support what I do, you can check out Patreon/Solo Roleplayers. I don't have a website. I don't really do social media. I should make a website. I started trying to make a website today.
Well, I will link all of those in the podcast description so people don't have to look too hard. They can just click and start listening. So.
Wonderful. Thank you for you doing your show. I really been a fan of your show as well. And that we spoke all that time ago when you were the old man in the industry and I was just a fresh-faced baby.
Don't tell people how old I am. I put pictures of myself on the internet, but yes, sometimes I do feel old. But no, I'm so glad that we got to talk, and I've been listening to you probably from the beginning. Then,
yeah, you might be my oldest fan.
Let's pretend.
longest fan. Sorry, not
longest fan. Well,
Thanks,
PJ, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you for listening to another episode of Perspective Checks. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you go check out PJ and the Solo Roleplayers podcast, as well as A Wasteland Story. And no excuses, you should go try that 20-minute solo challenge. I have tried it a few times now with a few games that I'm prepping to play with my home group, as well as just games that I've wanted to try. And at the very least, I get into the vibes of the game enough that I get ideas that get me excited. And then if I just have to check and piecemeal, little by little, mechanic by mechanic, before I know everything, it's been really awesome. All right, no big spiel at the end of the episode. Spend the next 20 minutes playing a game and get those games off your shelf.